Hi, this is Joe Chambers. Welcome to Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage, the Vault Series. Today's clip was shot back in 2004 in New York City, right across from David Letterman's theater at Allan Schwartzberg's recording studio. In this interview, Allan talks about being a session musician in New York in the 70s and 80s and the variety of artists that he would have to play with in the same day, from Barbra Streisand to Kiss and so forth. Hope you enjoy it. If you do, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. Once again, great studio drummer, Allan Schwartzberg. You remember the first hit record you played on?
I think the first hit was Tie a Yellow Ribbon.
So you started small then. I was kidding.
Hey, it was a big record.
Man, that was huge.
And then I did, I did a bunch of the Tony Orlando stuff. Anybody seen My Gypsy Rose, and a whole bunch of his hits, a bunch of Tony Orlando hits. He Don't Love Me Like She Loved Me, and but they weren't exactly like things I would share with Philly Joe Jones, you know, but they were hit records, and I've been hearing it on the radio.
It's got to be a thrill to hear that on the radio.
Yeah, I played on a lot of. Then I ended up playing on a lot of hit records. You know.
I was going through your lobby out here, and there's Harry Chapin and Jimi Hendrix, Barbra Streisand, Rod Stewart, Kiss.
I knew Kiss. We all used to. I know Gene Simmons a long time, and Paul Stanley and those guys. We were recording B.J. Thomas at Electric Lady Studios, Jimi Hendrix Studio, and this group called Wicked Lester, that was the original name of Kiss, were walking around the studio with these stupid boots, you know, these boots, silver boots, and decked out stuff. I mean, we thought it was hysterical, and I ended up playing on records for them, and I got a lot of respect for these guys who just made something pulled it out of the dirt and made something out of it.
Just because they wanted it so bad.
Yeah, they wanted it, and people love Kiss, and they did a great show. They did a great job, and they were a strong act.
So, did you play on any of their?
Yeah, I played on this on Gene Simmons' solo album. I played on Peter Criss's solo. I played drums on his own album with him sitting on the floor next to me, he's a cool guy. He was cool about it. The producer wanted it to sound a certain way, and these guys were not famous for playing in time. You know, and you can't put out a record that doesn't have a pulse. You know, and it didn't live. I couldn't touch Peter Criss. I couldn't come near him. But at that time, at that point in time, maybe he couldn't have done it. But so. Then I played on Animalize, and I played on an album called The Elder. As it was with Alice Cooper, I played on $1 Billion Babies without credit, and then Alice Cooper Goes to Hell, and then Lace and Whiskey with credit, with some credits.
How did that feel to go from like Kiss or Alice Cooper to Roberta Flack, or? I mean, that's
in the same day.
Yeah. In
the same day. That's what we used to do here in New York a lot. Well, in California too, I guess, and some Philly, maybe some in Philly was more. Philadelphia's more like kind of the same R&B. It was a lot of R&B coming out of Philadelphia, but in New York, I remember doing Judy Collins. How about Judy Collins in the morning, from 10 to 1, Felix Pappalardi from Mountain in the afternoon, and James Brown at night.
That was a good day.
How about those food groups? Those 3 different food groups. I mean, it was like, so you have to dial in, wear the different hats, be believable, and not sound like a guy. Well, kind of covering the job. You have to, really, I had to be a rock and roll maniac like Felix was, to please him. Playing hard. Like hard bass drum, until every note is almost as hard as I could play. Whereas Judy Collins, it's got to be like brushes and like something, like light and floaty. And James Brown has got to be dancing and just popping,
Did you remember what record you played on that day?
Yeah. For Judy Collins, it was You can't bluff. You can't bluff the dealer. It's something like that. Felix Pappalardi was producing Maggie Bell. Maggie Bell, singer from England. And James Brown was a record that I did with James Brown. One of them was called Funky President, which became like a kind of a basis for hip hop. It was the most sampled drum beat for early hip hop stuff.
You kind of got started in the disco phase.
I did. Yeah, I did the what's considered the first disco record. The first time that was used as a treatment for a song, and that was Never Can Say Goodbye, Glory Again, and Never Can Say Goodbye. And that was and people would call me up all the time and say, well, exactly what are you playing? Because I got the drummer here. I want to know what you're playing. We want to try to do that thing, and it wasn't just it's double time in the hi-hat with opening it up, and then there's some little left hand stuff. But basically it's 4 on the floor and that kind of thing. And that that was, I did a lot of disco stuff after that. All the Miko records, Star Wars, and a lot of stuff. I can't even think of it.
What was it like playing with Hendrix?
Well, here's my Hendrix story. I'm not that proud of it. I was playing at a place right up the block here, down the block, 46th Street, called The Scene. Steve Paul's The Scene. I was playing with a guy named Mose Allison. He was the original James Taylor. Kind of jazz, kind of folky jazz thing. Opposite us is Jimi Hendrix, playing with a flute player. It's a duo, a flute player. And I was playing at this, and I said, man, this thing is so loud. This stuff is, and I'm playing cool, like, kind of stuff, And I'm having a drink at the bar, and Jimmy comes over to me and says, man, I could do some playing. And he says, hey, man, it sounds great. I'd like to do some playing with you sometime. And I turn around, and he had the hat on, he had the hat and the beads, And I said,
was he already Jimi Hendrix?
He's not big. He's not that big yet. He's not that big yet. But I knew who he was. I mean, he was making a noise. And I said, yeah, sure. What am I going to play with you? What do you? Anyway, then years later, I'm doing these albums. They're posthumous albums. Jimmy has already passed, and these are outtakes that they're trying to save. And that's what I played on 2 of those albums, and they were hard to play on because Jimmy's count-offs on the song, he was wrecked. He was wrecked for these things, man. Sorry to say, but he was. And he would count off, and you could hear him go, okay, here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Dun, 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 dun. And it was like the count had nothing. The count off had nothing to do with it. It was just like he nodded out just before he counted off. 1, 2, 3. It wasn't 1, 2, 3. Dun, 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 dun. And then, and then you would come in and play normally. But he was, so you would have to find. Once you would get into the song, then you would have to. It was like one of those arcade games,
right?
Where you would follow the beat because you try to because he was so messed up.
Who was producing those? Was it?
That was it was Tony Bon Jovi. First one was it was both of them actually. Midnight Lightning and I forgot what the other one's called. Midnight Lightning went gold. And it was pretty well done. It was pretty believable. Just kept Jimmy's stuff and just did the drums were all over the place.
Who had played drums originally on it?
Mitch Mitchell.
Mitch Mitchell had?
Yeah, it was a mess. They were all messed up. All of them were messed up. And it was not salvageable. So I had to go somewhere in between slowing down and speeding up and yet keeping something so it doesn't sound like a warped record. And that was a bitch.
What do you think was the reason for? Was it Jimmy that was messed up, or was it everybody was messed up?
They were all messed up.
They were all messed up.
They were all messed up. They were all messed up. It was but this is what's left of Jimi Hendrix. They have these outtakes, stuff nobody had ever heard before, and by salvaging Jimmy's tracks, they were able to like add elements to it and put it out. I guess maybe the motive wasn't totally altruistic, but I was just called in to play drums on it and make it believable. And that was an overdub job from hell.
Peter Gabriel was that
one of my favorite things I've ever done in my life. Yeah, and it's his first album after he left Genesis. We did a tour. I did a tour with him for a year, playing live, and I had a great time. Tony Levin was the bass player, great bass player. Robert Fripp played guitar. Steve Hunter from Alice Cooper played guitar. Jimmy Malin was a wonderful percussionist who was alive at that time. He was one of my best friends at that time. And it was a great time. We had a great time doing that. It was a wonderful record. Still a wonderful record. Sonically, I wish it was better. I don't know what happened to that record sonically, but musicality that's on that record is terrific. Love drummers. I love reggae drummers. I'm not sure what their names are, some of them. Love reggae music. I love Tito Puente. I actually did a Tito Puente album. One of the highlights of my life was to do a Tito Puente album. And I heard it on the radio. I heard the first guy, here's the new Tito Puente record. And I heard it and I said, oh my God, it sounds great. And I had tears in my eyes listening to it. I said, I actually like the way I sound on there. It sounds wonderful. It's even better than I thought. And I ran out and bought the record, as you do when it's good luck to buy the record and stuff like that. And I ripped it open and it said Tito played all instruments.
Oh, man.
And I went over to him. I went over to one of his live gigs. And said, Tito, how could you fucking do that, man? He said, oh man, I'm sorry. I said, but the record company, they wanted to make me look big. So they put that there. It's not my fault, man. I'm sorry. What am I going to do? The record's already pressed out there, and that was a big disappointment. But I know I played on there, so I loved him. I loved his timbale playing.